What is the secret to success? Is there a secret to success? It's a question I get asked a lot, especially when speaking to entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, business owners, and career people in general. Is how did you take your business to £15 million from scratch, which is where we are today? It's not so much a secret, but it's something that all successful, achievement-driven people have in common. And it's a philosophy, it's a way of thinking, it's an understanding into the power of discipline. That is the most important thing that you can take from this video, is the power of discipline. Later, I'm going to show you a video of how it works. What happens is your disciplines compound, and that is the eighth wonder of the world, as Albert Einstein says, compound interest. More specifically, compound choices. Discipline is so important in your success, and success comes in many flavors, whether it's fitness, whether it's relationships, whether it's money, whether it's spirituality, whether it's academic achievement. You have decision to make about your own success and how far you want to take it. But for the ones that really say they really want success, like, what is the difference that makes the difference? It's all about discipline. And what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to illustrate Jack, John, and James, how three hypothetical scenarios, how they work and the philosophy that they have for work, and how they end up at the end of the year. You see, because when I was building my business in the very early days, I had this philosophy, this mindset that if the average person is at work 8 hours a day, but they're only working 6 of those 8, if I work 12 hours a day, I could get to where the average person gets in 20 years in 10. This is how I collapsed the time. And yes, there is an element of working smarter, 100%. But if you can work smarter and work harder, that's the holy grail of where you want to be. And it is said that you have to first work hard in order to be able to earn the luxury to then work smart. That is really important. So work-life balance, does it exist? It does. But depending on your level of success and what you want to achieve, it won't. Because the more success that you want to achieve, you have to put in the effort at the beginning. There's something that happens, it's like a steam train. You know, when a steam train starts to take off, it takes so much effort to start to build up that pressure to get it moving. But once it's moving and it's speeding up, it's very hard. It takes a lot of pressure to slow down. The same is true with you and your career, you and your business, you and your money, you and your fitness, you and your relationships, whatever. You have to put in the effort in the early days. And it's not for everybody, admittedly. But knowing this, when my company hires a new salesperson and they're putting the effort in, and then they go and take a holiday within the first 3 to 6 months of them starting their new job, how I see that and what I know is happening to the compound effect of their success, it's eating into their future success. So I always think to myself, and I never say it because people are allowed to do what they want, why don't you take that holiday later on in the year as opposed to in the early stages? You're stopping the momentum of you moving forward. So to build something great, to build something of value, to build something worthwhile, the early days require sacrifice. Think about it from this perspective. Everything you sacrifice today leads to a reward later on. Whereas if you don't sacrifice today, then it's very hard for you to get those rewards later on. So everything you do, it's like an energetic bank account that you're paying into of like, I've earned it. You may not be getting paid for it in the beginning, but you're building up this bank account with future earnings. And that is done through discipline, and that discipline requires sacrifice. So the scenario I'm going to take you through is basically 3 people. John goes hard 4 days and rests for 3. Jack goes hard for 5 days and rests for 2. And James goes hard for 6 days and rests for 1. And you know, I'm quite a spiritual guy. I'm quite open spiritually. And I believe that, you know, these spiritual texts, more specifically the Bible, gives us an idea and it gives an indication. It gives us a clue into creation. It said God worked 6 days and rested 1. Guess what we need to do when building our businesses? And that is exactly what I did in the early days of my business. I worked for 6 days, rested for 1. Worked for 6 days, rested for 1. And I'm going to show you exactly what that does to somebody's success. This is the scenario that I was talking about, the example. The secret to success is compound choices. And for me to explain it properly, this is the illustration. So John, as I said, goes hard for 4 days and slows down for 3. So what you can see here is he goes hard for 4 days, slows down for 3. hard for 4 days, slows down for 3, etc., etc. And you can see the amount of instances of disciplines that it takes, or that he has almost committed to. And then we have the amount of instances in weeks, the amount of time that he has dedicated himself. So this is the year. So if we look at an annual review, right? So with that level of discipline, John ends up at a level of 31 by the end of the year. He's managed to get himself to 31. If we were to say that hypothetically 100 is mastery, he is a third of the way there to mastery. And we can quantify this in any way, whether it's working in your business, whether it's working in the gym, whether it's trying to get a result with your fitness, with relationships, commitment to anything that you can define as what is success, essentially. So John, after 52 weeks, has ended up at level 31. Jack, who goes hard for 5 days and slows down for 2, has basically ended up at level 38. So it's taking him, you can see here, 5 days 2, 5 days 2, 5 days 2, 5 days 2. And obviously there's a higher growth curve as opposed to John, which is a bit more a straight line. This is a bit more of a higher growth curve. And he ends up at level 38 at the end of the year. James, however, goes hard for 6 days and slows down for 1. What you can see here, this is really, really starting to, create a growth curve, to really start to create that momentum. And he ends up at level 45 by end of week 52. So level 45 by the end of the year is so much more ahead than the other two. And let's review that. So John, again, goes hard for 4 days and slows down for 3. With that level of discipline, John ends up at level 31 by the end of the year. Jack goes hard for 5 days and slows down for 2. With that level of discipline, Jack ends up at level 38 by the end of the year. James goes hard for 6 days and slows down for 1. With that level of discipline, James ends up at level 45 by the end of the year. Now let's summarize that. Jack is 9 weeks ahead of John. That's over 2 months ahead of John. It took Jack 43 weeks to get to level 31, and that's where John is. Now James is 16 weeks ahead of John. It took James 36 weeks to get to level 31, where John is. So 16 weeks, right? That's 4 months. That's a third of the year. He's basically done in 9 months what John has done in a year. So he has bought himself 3 months. He's basically collapsed the time. And if we look at James versus Jack, James is 8 weeks ahead of Jack, 2 months ahead of Jack. It took James 44 weeks to get to level 38 where Jack is. And we end today with a quote that says, "Nobody wants to tell you why discipline is so important." Well, I do. But discipline is the strongest form of self-love. It is ignoring current pleasures for bigger rewards to come. It is loving yourself enough to give yourself everything you've ever wanted. Love yourself. Give yourself your dreams. It takes discipline. Till next time.